This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. A ton to get into, so let's just get started. First question comes from Patreon, and that's from Bad Moneymaker, who says, why was Kevin's game planning so terrible? And I think that a lot of people picked up on this, that, hey, the game planning, something just didn't seem right. But I also think that we weren't thinking about that, or at least some of us during the game weren't thinking about it one level deeper. The game planning looked bad for DTR. It looked as if this were a game where they were surprised that they had to play DTR. I don't know what went into Deshaun not playing. I think that he is injured and clearly unable to play. That's the only reason he did not play. I'm not trying to insinuate anything along those lines. But what I am saying is that I think everybody, Deshaun, Kevin, the trainer, all of them were surprised that he was not cleared to go. That was not something that they were expecting. They were thinking, hey, it's probably going to be a 90% chance that Deshaun plays. We're probably just being cautious and not practicing him. And then you get to the game and he doesn't play. And this looked like a game that, you know, it wasn't meant for DTR to play for. And then you throw DTR in there and look, some of it's game planning, just it not being the right game plan for DTR. And I think that if this were a situation where they knew Deshaun was out at the beginning of the week, they could have prepared DTR a little bit better and had more of a custom plan for him, and he would have looked better. I have no doubt in my mind, because we've seen him do similar stuff like that with other quarterbacks. But this is a situation where you didn't get that luxury, right? Deshaun Watson was kind of lingering all week on if he's going to play, and it was heavily leaning towards the side of he's going to play. Everybody thought he was going to play. Deshaun, I think Kevin thought he was going to play. I think the trainers thought he was going to play. You get to Sunday and he can't play, right? Something did not heal in that shoulder enough for him to be cleared to play, so he could not play. And I think this is the result of when that happens. I don't think it really mattered if it was DTR in there. It could have been Josh Dobbs. It could have been Jacoby Brissett. Anybody in that situation where you're kind of just thrown in there, not in the middle of the game, but to start kind of like last minute, it's not a good situation for any quarterback. And that on top of DTR not just being a backup quarterback, but being a rookie backup quarterback at the beginning of the year, playing against a AFC North rival in the Baltimore Ravens, it was a tough axe. And the play calling could have been better for sure. The game planning could have been better if they knew that DTR was going to play. But let's be realistic about what we're asking here. It was a tough axe to begin with, and we probably weren't going to get much more of a different result in that situation. No matter how you want to change the small variables around it, the big thing that changed and the thing that's obvious, the smoking gun and what happened on Sunday, is Deshaun Watson did not play. You can try to mix and match all the other parts. Well, what if Josh Dobbs played instead of DTR? Or what if it were PJ Walker instead of DTR? We can move the small pieces around. I don't think it changes the big picture. That game happened because you don't have Watson and you no longer have Nick Chubb as a safety blanket. Maybe if there's Nick Chubb too, you also have to think about that. Late in the week, you lose him and you don't have Nick Chubb to, you know, have that easy change in the game where it's like, okay, DTR is playing, all right, we're going to run the ball a lot. You don't have that because Jerome Fort's not like that. You can't just switch it up to him. Kareem Hunt's not like that, you know? So it was a tough situation. And it going up to a game time decision and Watson being out really didn't help anything look better. And I think that's kind of what led into that result, to be honest with you. But thank you for the question, Brad. Jim L with the next question. This also from Patreon. Shout out to my patrons. Is a running game cooked without Chubb? Is Watson more injured than we are being led to believe? The running game's not cooked without Chubb, but it's just not what you're used to. Like, it's not Nick Chubb. And there's nobody you can get, nobody you can sign, nobody you can trade for that's going to change that. It's just not going to be that. The day, at least for this year, the days of we'll just run the ball 35 times. That's not happening this year. They don't have that option. That went out the window the second his ACL and MCL tore. Well, at least his MCL. But that went out the window the second that happened. So you just don't have it. And you can have a decent running game without Nick Chubb. You can have a good running game without Nick Chubb, but you're not going to have the same dominant running game without Nick Chubb. It's just not going to happen. Now, is Watson more injured than we're being led to believe? I think right now that Watson not playing, as I said in the last question, it was a surprise to us, just like it was a surprise to everybody else in that works for the Browns. I don't think anybody expected that he would not play or thought that there was a high chance that he would not play. Now, what does concern me is he practiced a little bit on Tuesday or Wednesday, and then the next day he could only throw the ball a couple times. What worries me is there seems to be a lack of progression here with this injury. That's scary, right? He throws a little bit on Wednesday. It gets worse. He can't throw on Thursday. Then you get to Sunday, he can't throw again, right? I think the report was from Mary Kay, he only threw the ball a couple times, same as the week before. Well, same as the couple days before practice. That's a little concerning. Right now, what's the nature of this injury? I have no idea. I don't think they've been transparent enough on this. And hopefully in the coming days, we get more transparency on this and we get to figure out what's the actual injury to him so we can know what the nature of that timeline is. Right now, I don't know. And it's leaving room to speculate. And I think the worst case scenario, if you're the Browns or Deshaun Watson, is that this is some kind of nerve damage issue, because that means that the timetable is random, right? When you have nerve issues, if any of you guys have had those upper neck, shoulder nerve issues, you know that some of these things kind of do sound familiar. I've had trapezius issues as early as last year, and I know that really affected not my range of motion. My range of motion was fine with that injury, but my grip, right? I wasn't able to grip and throw things with my right arm is nearly as well. It took like a year to be able to grip and throw things with my right arm as well as my left. And like even to like curl, I'm right-handed naturally. My curls were out of sync for a very long time, just lifting weights. Now, I'm not Deshaun Watson. I'm not an elite athlete. I'm not a doctor. So that's just my anecdotal experience. But again, if you have some kind of nerve issue, which could be up there in that shoulder area, again, the trapezius is right here. It's more of a neck thing than a shoulder thing. But that's what nerve issues do to you. And those things don't just recover on a set timetable. You just kind of have to treat them, take care of them, heat them, and then just wait to the day that it goes away. You know, and we saw Greedy Williams have those things. Now, I don't know if it's a nerve issue. I don't think it is, because if it was, I feel like we would have known by now that it was a nerve issue. I think it's more or less that he might have slightly displaced the shoulder and it had more swelling than they anticipated. And he's just going to take he's going to need to take some antibiotics to get some of that swelling out of his system. And it's going to be a 1 to 2 week kind of thing. He'll be back by San Francisco. That's the best case scenario. But the door's open because they just haven't been transparent. The next question comes from Justin Cowles, who says, hey, Q, are the Browns now wishing they would have kept Dobbs instead of handing the backup role over to a 5th rounder who had a great preseason? Groups of fans calling DTR definitely got silenced. At least the Browns have the rest of this, has the rest going into the San Francisco game. How do you think you match up with them? This is another great defense. I'm curious if Stefanski can even game plan for this team appropriately. It's funny how things change week to week, because last week we thought that Kevin could game plan pretty well and that he put together a good game plan against a good Titans team. This week the game plan doesn't go well because obviously it got blown up by a Watson injury. Now we're wondering if he can appropriately game plan. It's a week to week league. I understand that, but we gotta cool it with the week to week declarations of things, especially when it comes to long-term things. And the truth is, if Kevin Stefanski wins this year, he'll stay. If he doesn't, he'll be gone by the end of the year. Now, are they wishing they would have kept Josh Dobbs? I don't think so, because Josh Dobbs doesn't change that result. We saw what Josh Dobbs did versus the 49ers today with the Arizona Cardinals. It was not impressive. I don't know where this idea is that Josh Dobbs would have came in there and beat him. The only guy that could have walked through that door and given you a chance versus the Baltimore Ravens in that situation when you don't have your starting quarterback is Nick Chubb. If Nick Chubb ain't walking through that door, no backup quarterback is saving you. I'm dead serious when I say that. And we all have to understand that's the truth. That is the only person that could have walked through those stadium doors that would have changed the math on that game is Nick Chubb. Once Deshaun was out, Nick Chubb was the only person who could have saved you. And Nick Chubb just got done getting his surgery. He's going to be out until at least 2024. So that's just where you were at. You don't have your best running back. You don't have your two best players on offense. You're going to look like that. No offensive coordinator can save you. No scheme is going to save you. No game plan is going to save you. If the Chiefs have to play a game without Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and they're playing a division game, they're not going to look good. They're not. They play the Baltimore Ravens without Travis Kelce and Pat Mahomes. Ain't going to look good. If the Miami Dolphins have to play a game against the Patriots without Tua and Tyreek Hill, it's not going to look good. Take the two best players from any offense away from a team and see how they look. It won't look good. And you could blame the offensive coordinator all you want. You could blame the offense all you want. Truth is that it's kind of hard to determine that, given that the quarterback was out of the game and then DTR was just so bad. And honestly, I don't think it was so bad because he was being asked to do so many complicated things. I just think he sucked because he was a rookie. And again, you could have gotten better quarterback play if you throw Josh Dobbs in there. No doubt Josh Dobbs would have thrown less interceptions, but you ain't winning that game. So I don't get what the argument is about. Maybe you score 13 points, you still lose by 20. Saying so, YouTube member says, with the Titans dominating Cincinnati and DTR struggling today, did that make that performance by Watson last week look a lot better? I like to think so. But again, I can't even, there's a possibility that, hey, let's say Watson played versus this Baltimore team and he looked bad. It's one game. I said this against Pittsburgh. It's one game. It didn't look good. I said this after the Tennessee game. It's one game. It does look good. We need to have more sample size right now. We just do. It's way too early to make any definitive determinations, but it does make you feel better, but it's only marginal. Eric said, what do you think the Browns' expectation of DW4 is after the bye? Hopefully he's back to healthy by then. And one last question to add on. Do you think they lay off the Elijah Moore running back looks? Just wondering. Yeah, they're not getting what they want from those. So I think they have to just let it go. I think they thought they were going to get better execution on that, but Elijah just not a great running back. It turns out doesn't have the greatest vision in the world. He's not making great decisions when he's on those end arounds. So I don't think that's going to continue to be a part of the offense after the bye week. As far as what I expect from Deshaun Watson after the bye, the same thing I expected before the bye. He has to find a way to get the top level quarterback play. 20 says, think the Browns stick with DTR as the backup for the rest of the year? You think they drop him for Walker or bring in a vet? No, they're going to stick with him. They're going to stick with him. And at this point, why not? He already had the bad game. I think that that's going to be his worst game of his season or his career. So you already sat through that. Why bench him at that point? I have a Chubb says, do you think Stefanski should have set up DTR to win with better and easier passing schemes the first couple of drives to get him adjusted, or is it on DTR to make those throws and reads? Hey, man, Kevin can't go out there, hold your hand, and make everything easy for you. And what does that mean when we're talking about playing the Baltimore Ravens? Like, I see a lot of people say that. I don't think Games Mason is the only person that's saying that. A lot of people hit me up. Hey, Kevin should have made the game easier for DTR. Kevin should have made these throws easier for DTR. That's not a thing. You're playing the Baltimore Ravens. You're playing a division opponent in the NFL. It's not a thing. There's no such thing as easy throws. They are NFL defense, a really good NFL defense. There's no such thing as easy throws, right? Like, you got to just make throws in the NFL. And he was not ready for that. The moment was too big for him. Whether the play calling could have been better, probably, right? Like, that result suggests that the play calling could have been better, but we're talking about things that would have improved that situation marginally. A lot of DTR's issues in this game weren't necessarily the reads he were making. It was his physical limitations. Like, he just didn't have the arm strength to fit the windows that he wanted to fit into. And that's something he's going to have to learn. That's the adjustment from playing in pros. Well, playing from college to the pros is that, hey, you might have good arm strength at UCLA, but in the NFL, you throw that slant, we picking that off because it's just faster. And it's faster than the preseason. It's so much faster than the preseason. So a lot of people are like, hey, man, Kevin should have hit the easy button for DTR and found some easy passes for him. Yeah, this is the NFL, man. If you could make the passes easier, the Browns wouldn't have 30 starting quarterbacks in the last 20 years. Like, if that were a thing, I promise you, they would have found a way to at quarterback 5 to get stable quarterback play instead of 20. There's a reason why the Browns go through all these quarterbacks. There's a reason why the Browns trade everything to get a quarterback. It's because the position is hard. There's not a lot of ways to make it easier, especially in the AFC North, the toughest division, especially when it comes to defenses in football. There's no easy button. There's no, hey, man, we're going to throw a ton of screens. They got Roquan Smith. And I have my criticisms of Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith is a screen god, though. You can't throw screens at Roquan Smith and think that's going to end well. It doesn't. You're asking Roquan to get a pick 6, right? Like, you can't do that. So the screen stuff, you couldn't do that. The play action stuff wasn't there because nobody was biting because you don't have Nick Chubb. You don't have the personnel right now to get easy stuff. Amari Cooper's a good wide receiver. He's not like Jamar Chase. Well, not Jamar Chase's bag. He's not Stephon Diggs. He's not an elite wide receiver. He's not going to get super duper wide open. He's not Devontae Adams. He's not a safety blanket. You have no more safety blankets, and you're throwing a rookie quarterback out there. There's no play calling magic that he could have put out there that would have made people wide open. If he could have, he would have. I promise you, because nobody wanted to watch that. But the truth is that playing football in the AFC North is hard. And the Browns have lost some pieces on offense and did not have some pieces that made that even harder. You know why Deshaun Watson can have some easy throws? It's because he stresses the defense because of his ability to run. So they have to worry about that. So that allows for some open lanes to pop up when he throws the football. Or when Nick Chubb was out there, why you can get some easy throws on play action is because you have to respect Nick Chubb on play action. But no Nick Chubb means I don't have to respect your play action. No Deshaun Watson means I don't have to respect you running the ball with your quarterback or you throwing it deep on me because you don't got that guy no more. You got DTR out there. You got Jerome Ford. So it allows defenses to condense in on you and take away the easy stuff. And now DTR is forced to make throws that he's just not ready for. I hope that explains it to y'all on why it's not as simple as call these plays. That's not a thing, especially when you don't have Nick Chubb. Again, you have Nick Chubb. If Nick Chubb could have walked through them double doors and played today, that would have changed things for this team. But that's the only guy who could have suited up and changed anything for this team in this game. That's not also Deshaun, right? That's the only guy. And I think we're better off just accepting that. Like that's what sucks about Nick Chubb being out for the year. That's it right there. Brown says, do you think the Browns were expecting Watson to play and didn't even think DTR would play? Also, do you think the play calling should have been different? Sure, the play calling could have been different. Again, when you score 3 points, you probably got some things you want back there as a play caller. But do I think the Browns were expecting Watson to play? Yeah, I think it was a surprise to him. Murr says, how do you feel after 4 games? I'm undecided. Like, 2 good games, 2 bad games. 2 good wins, 2 bad losses. Well, not a bad loss against Baltimore, but 1 bad loss and 1 loss that don't feel good at all because you got blown out. I think that there's a lot to see with this team, and I think that, the next month's going to be crucial for them, and the month after that's going to be crucial, and the month after that's going to be crucial, and the month after that's going to be crucial. It's going to be a long season because I think this is going to take a season to know where this team is at this year. It's not going to be solved in week 5 or week 6. Like, we're going to have to continue on to see week by week what this team does. Extend Josh Naylor says, what do you think the expectations for week 6 should be? Hopefully we can get everybody healthy over the bye. And if the Browns want to show that they're real, winning would make a great statement for them. Look, they shouldn't be focused about proving to the world that they're real. I could care less about that. The expectations should be the same as they were before this week. The Browns should go in there and play a tough game versus San Francisco. And whatever the result of that can go either way. Those are 2 very good teams. But you want to go in there and look good, play well. Ultimately, it's an NFC team. The tiebreaker is not really that important. So if you lose that game, it's not the biggest deal in the world. But you want to go in there, you want to look good versus San Francisco. No doubt. Michael Davis says, I think that the defense wasn't as bad as the 20.8 points they gave up. I'm not worried. Absolutely. They gave up 14 of those points on turnovers in heavy plus territory. So it's hard to blame the defense for that. I'm worried more about the run game going forward the season because even if Watson plays good, we still might struggle to win games. Another thing I'm concerned about is, look, they're going to have to take Watson out this run game stuff after this injury scare. And one of the concerns with doing that is, hey, what's that going to do to everything else? Right. If Watson's not a threat to run the ball because you don't want to run him as much. Now, when he's throwing the ball, that threat's going to still be there because you still got to respect it, even if you're not going to call some run plays. But if he's not a factor in the called run game, then, is that going to help anything for this run game going forward? I have no idea. We're going to wait to see. Zeus 911 says, do you believe we have a problem with play calling? It's been 4 seasons. Kevin Stefanski has never been able to get the most out of his skill position players. Currently, Cooper is the only guy. I mean, what? Odell Beckham, are we blaming that one on Kevin now? Are we retconning that? Because I thought that was on Baker, right? It's debatable. I mean, look, he hasn't had consistent quarterback play. And when your quarterback play looks like it did on Sunday, you're not going to look like a great offense. I want to stress this again. When your quarterback play looks like it did on Sunday, when your quarterback looks like a deer in the headlights, and again, you could blame Kevin for putting that dude in that position, but nobody who's going to be the backup to Deshaun Watson's going to look good because they're the backup. You could throw anybody you want in there. Okay. You could talk about Gardner Minshew winning the week before against the Baltimore Ravens if you want, but you also have to bring into context that they played that game in a rainstorm. So the passing game wasn't a factor. This was not that. The Ravens were able to put up points. So, yeah, the only guy who could have helped you out was Nick Chubb, because that would have been the only thing that opens up things. But as far as skill players go, I mean, Nick Chubb is a skill player. He's gotten the most out of him. You could say that he's gotten pretty good. You got the most anybody's gotten out of David Njoku. Amari Cooper has had one of his highest career years since he's been in Cleveland. Well, not in Cleveland, in his career in Cleveland under Stefanski in that offense. And Donovan Peoples-Jones has been able to make a nice career of himself in this offense. So I would say that's false. I mean, that's a bunch of skill players I just named right there. Really, you can try to make that argument, but you can only make that argument if you're like Odell and then like act like it was only Kevin that was the problem with the Odell thing when there was a well-documented war that we fought with that. You know what I mean? But that's it for the Q&A. You guys have a great day. Have an even better night.